there, John here, Seafood John in this capacity. Um, what I kind of want to do is I want to be able to. I th It's kind of weird the way the language works for a lot of things. What I'm basically going to do is something I'm calling deconstructing Yang style. So we're talking about Yang style Tai Chi Chuan. And by deconstructing, um, again, trying to make some stuff with its kind of component parts. So instead of, all right, here is the long form, follow me, play the long form. Kind of like the old school way where it was, there's a lot of you were picking it up yourself or you weren't picking it up. And unless you're showing that, you've got a certain amount of aptitude and discipline for the style and for the practice, then you're never going to get beyond a certain point because the teachers are going to still consider you open door instead of closed door and everything. So the culture and the times that we're in now are different than 100, 200 years ago or so when Yang style started, and hundreds of years before that with Chen style and all the Wudong stuff, and then everything out of Shaolin, and then even before that with the Taoist stuff and the sort of proto-Taoist, sort of old school shaman stuff that started it all kind of in China. It's just a different culture now, and in a different time, and especially since I'm American. I've lived in America my whole life. The furthest out of the country I've been so far is Toronto. Not super proud of that, but it's just the way circumstances and everything have been so far. One of these days, ooh, close up. One of these days, I'll change that. Maybe have me some sort of Tai Chi or fantasy writer, Anthony Bourdain sort of thing. Run around and do cool stuff with cool people and eat awesome food and have cool adventures. Um, that'd be nice. Until then, however, we've got to kind of keep going where we are here. And I think it's in terms of what I've seen from when I was first learning to when I still practice now and try and get better with my own practice now, some 22 years later, as well as the people who come through and I teach, regardless of whether it's friends of mine and we kind of do a bunch of crazy stuff in the backyard or something else like that, or the people through the um, Sifu Irvin's Swaijiao school, or the people I'm picking up now back at FitWorks after 15 years. Things like that, or just people picking up here or there, doing whatever they want to do. It really helps to be able to break stuff down to a lot of component parts and then be able to build on top of that. So instead of it's almost um, I guess inductive as opposed to deductive. Deductive is here's the form, you follow it and kind of work on doing your research and figuring out and playing with it as we go, which is going to need to have to be happened anyway, regardless of how things are broken down for you. The work and the effort still have to be with the individual person. God, doesn't matter how good your teacher is, doesn't matter how awesome the equipment is, doesn't matter if you're doing the old school thing where you're living at their house for 10 years and they're teaching you every possible little tiny little thing they can do and transmitting, spiritual acumen through dreams and astral projection. It doesn't matter unless the individual themselves is doing the work and putting forth the effort as an individual to progress and get better on their own. It just seems to me that there are ways with which we can help people do that. I don't necessarily mean so much faster, as in maybe a little bit more efficiently. If every generation we can add, and I don't mean generation just in terms of age, I'm talking about generations in terms of where you are kind of in the learning. So, even though there might be someone who's, older than me coming to train under me, technically along those lines, I'd be in a generation higher because I learned it kind of first and I'm teaching them. But if we can make the generations after us just a little bit better than us, at least, or at least have that intent that I want my students to be better than me. And how do I make that happen? How do I make it to where, whether or not they're just online here, whether or not I'm actually able to get anything published in terms of writing, either fiction or nonfiction, whether or not it's people who are actually coming into my classes, or just people I'm chatting with on the side who also have some training, but maybe we're just kind of talking shop, something along those lines. How do we transmit our unique experiences and perceptions as complete a way as possible, as well as being, I just saw something, okay, as well as being as correct as we possibly can with the stuff that came older. One of the things my teacher and I really agreed about and bonded with in terms of learning and teaching is that what did the people before us, what was the point they were trying to make? And not just our teachers, but their teachers, back to the people who started whatever art it is that we're working on at the time. Yang style, Chen style, Taiji, Sun style, Xingyi or Bagua, Cheng Bagua. What were those people trying to do? What work were they going in? And if you're going to go into Sun style, and that's going to be a whole other thing, because that guy, I'm convinced, was just an absolute Taoist, adept, genius, crazy internal alchemist guy that we really don't find anymore, or at least isn't as sort of known and out there as we really think of now. But how do we get that better? How do I help people avoid the mistakes I made? Everyone's going to make mistakes, and there's going to be, as I say in classes, there's going to be certain just uh, uh, progressional things people are going to do that kind of everyone has to get through, especially, again, talking about people who have been conditioned in late 20th, early 21st century America. There are certain things we're conditioned with as people living in this society that, quite frankly, is absolutely detrimental to our mental, emotional, psychological, psychic, spiritual, energetic, physical health. And there are things that are absolutely, the guy above me is vacuuming. It's really funny right now. And there are things that are diametrically opposed to what traditional Chinese medicine and traditional Chinese internal martial arts are going to teach. So we have to completely unlearn a whole lot of stuff. The way we hold our body, just the entire way we hold and move our body, let alone having a system of breathing and paying attention to things like that. Even the way mindfulness gets just programmed to us now is a completely materialist, reductionist, BS sort of way it gets put on. And I know this because I've researched the way psychology pushed forth mindfulness. I was a beta tester for a mindfulness program when I was working in a day treatment center. And the only thing I got out of that was there was some cool brain information. There was a lot of stuff there that missed the damn point of where it was coming from. And I understand trying to make certain things seem more maybe non-denominational, sort of quote unquote. But at that point in time, you don't need any of the religious aspects of any of these things to get them correct. In fact, Taoism, Buddhism, all this stuff, there shouldn't be a bloody religion to this stuff anyway. So we've got to completely unlearn and then relearn and then practice to make a habit, whole ton of stuff. Again, diametrically opposed to what we're conditioned as Americans in the 20th and 21st century, which is the only real context I can come at this from. As much as I've read, how many ever different translations of the Tao Te Ching that I've read, however many different translations of things like, was it Yang Chen Fu's 10 Essential Points or anything else like that, or whatever translations of this. I've read translations. I haven't read it in the original Chinese. I don't know Chinese. I've never been to China. I've never been to like Chen Village or Wudong Mountain or Shaolin Temple or wherever in like Shanghai or Beijing that the Yangs live at, or I've never met Young Jun, who's the sort of head of the Yang family now, or the now late Young Zhonda. I've never met them. Um, so the best I can do is the transmission that I got from my teacher, that he got from his teachers, and they got from their teachers down and up the line, I should say, and then my own research that I've done with videos and with reading, with teaching. Teaching is a great way to learn with my own practice, my own absolutely everyday practice, sitting meditation, all the movement stuff, even standing meditation, sensory deprivation. I've done sensory deprivation floats, and those things have helped too. Not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone's going to want to do that, and that's fine. Different stuff I've done around trees or animals or other people, and again, talking to people and different things has informed the way I practice. And either like, oh, okay, I got to remember never to remember that because that's awful. I don't want that. Or I got to remember that I really got to plug that into my practice because that's super cool. And everything kind of in between. I mean, I've been doing this 22 years. I'm still watching, Yang style videos you know, um, of like Fu Zhongwen, who's Yang Chen Fu's student, who has, the book that we've learned from and gleaned out of for years and years and years now. And he was, a direct student of Yang Chen Fu, like one of the last ones and everything. So watching him play is going to be kind of as close to Yang Chen Fu and what he was trying to get across as I can get. Again, I mean, I was born late 20th century. I can't go back in time and learn. Early 20th century was a crazy time. You got like Yang Chen Fu and Sun Lu Tong and Chen Tinghua and all like these like sort of main like badass people. Chen Fa Ke and everything like that. All these badass internal martial artists doing some badass cool stuff, man. I can't learn from them, so I've got to do whatever I can. And the people underneath me can't do that either. So I've got to do, as a responsible teacher, do the best that I can to try and put forth as genuine an article as I can possibly put forth. And to me, what's helped me, and I know what's helped other people, is sometimes stripping it all down, laying a very, very smooth, straight, solid foundation and building incrementally up from that. And, pardon me, that's my intent for this sort of, right now, what's percolating in my head playlist here on YouTube. Maybe someday it gets translated into a book. Maybe everything I'm doing now before I put it out on YouTube is just going to be turned into a book or an article, or maybe it goes nowhere. Maybe I change my mind in 20 minutes after eating some turkey tacos and say, throw it all out. Maybe I delete this, maybe I save it, and then, 20 years from now, I'm like, I forgot about this. I don't know. Hopefully, if it gets put out and I do what I want to do right now with it, it'll be very helpful to some people. I've got tons of videos on my YouTube list. Some of them are from haunted houses. Some of them are me ranting about movies or TV shows. A lot of them are, doing stuff with internals, qigong, silk reeling, taiji, xingyi, bagua, all this other stuff. And I don't get a lot of hits so far with them. Part of that's a little bit of a blow to the ego because I think I've got some good things to be able to share and people can get stuff from it, and stuff's not getting watched. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a little part of me that would be like, hey, what would be awesome if I could just make some of these playlists and then make some money off some of these playlists, and ease some of that material burden on my life. That would be nice. I'm not gonna lie, that'd be cool. But that's also saying in complete recognition that the people who are full-time YouTubers do a lot of work. And I've said this to kids when I was working day treatment. I'm just going to be on YouTube. It's like, do you know how much work that goes into that? I mean, you've got to be on schedule with what you're going to put out, when you're going to put out, and how you're going to put it out. There's a certain amount of production people expect. how are you going to put yourself up and make yourself any different than the other 10,000 people who are doing the exact same thing you're doing? If you're trying to get out there putting some music out there, how are you any different? And the stuff that you're saying to me sounds exactly like a bunch of other stuff that's going on. So how are you gonna twist that? What are you gonna do to do that? You want to play video games online? Okay, not my personal thing, but okay, I can understand the appeal. What are the people doing that you think that you can do that better or just as good or better than them? Look at the people who are really successful. They've got a schedule. They stick to a schedule. They're putting stuff out. They've got intros, outros, music. They've got people that they're following. They're streaming here, putting stuff on YouTube, adding stuff, Patreons and all this. There's a lot of bloody work that goes into it. You're your own, basically, television producer. You're going to podcast, you're your own radio producer. So not only you have to produce the show, you have to perform the show, you have to research the show. It's not like, the Tonight Show where you've got, you sit in a room and there's 12 other writers helping you come up with material, and you got someone who's dressing you and a studio that's got cameras and producers and all this other stuff. It's all you. So I appreciate the work that people do to be entrepreneurs in this sort of realm. Um, but the same thing is, and that just ties back in with the training as well. In order to be correct with it, to get the most that you can out of it, it's not just, oh, well, there's this little gym bunny and they went to this weekend retreat and got this little certification, so we're going to do Tai Chi. And it's just this. Look, I'm really good at Tai Chi. I can do all this. It's nothing. That's nothing. That's nothing. To be correct at anything you do, to have gong fu. Remember, gong fu means special skill developed over time. You want to play guitar, you want to be really good at guitar, you want to be really good at carpentry, you want to be really good at, I don't know, coding or cybersecurity. You have to develop that skill with discipline over time. And the same thing is with this. So if you want the mindfulness practice, you want to get healthier, you want to get more connected with your whole structure of your body, with your energy, with your mind, with your spirit, whatever you want to put it into, there's got to be work on the individual's part in order to make that happen. My job as a teacher is to try and facilitate that work for yourself as correctly and as thoroughly as I can, in such a way that, what might have taken me 10 years to understand, maybe you can do in 8 or 7. Or maybe there's something I can say or do, little correction I could make, or some sort of analogy. And I'll try and bring like 3 or 4 mental images or illustrations or analogies to make multiple things, to try and kind of cross pollinate, to hit different people with different ways and different things. Maybe now, if something took me 7, 8 years to kind of have that pop and figure out, maybe now it takes you 5. Maybe. And that's my job, is to make the next generation better. And yes, I'll admit, teaching helps me understand my art and my practice at a higher level in a better way. Teaching helps you learn, especially if it's, I try and think of it in that sort of Einstein way of, if you can't explain it to a young kid, you don't know it, which is kind of scary now, talking about, Qi, Jing, and Shen, your energy, your intent, the expression of that energy and intent, and then your spirit. And then you've got to start making sure, it's like, I don't necessarily mean soul, but then if someone wants to talk about that, how do you talk about that there too? If someone's trying to talk about it and it's like, hey, look, I read this book by this guy, and it sounds a lot like, now we're talking about stuff from like Israel Regardie and Aleister Crowley and these guys and everything like that. Like, yeah, yeah, there's some crossover, or, there might be an indigenous practice of, many souls at different things, and there's many different energy bodies. And that sounds like there's a lot of crossover and a lot of different things, all from all over the world and all over history. And it's, if that's the way people can interact with it, then even better, because then maybe they've got their own practice, their own understanding, and this is a way and that's a way to kind of bridge maybe some gap, but still be able to maintain that this is still what's correct for Yang style Tai Chi and Chen style Tai Chi and Sun style Tai Chi. And there's a through thread line of all of those, but then there's the ways that they will express themselves as individual arts, and then how you express yourself as an individual expressing those individual arts and everything else like that too. So if I can, yeah, that so again, my intent, to reiterate, my intent is to try and, I've got stuff on here that's Shingi and Bagua, and there's some Chen silk reeling and Qigong and all this other stuff. I'm going to try and focus this playlist on Yang style Tai Chi Chuan and how to build a practice of Yang style Tai Chi Chuan that can inform you and inform itself, and have whomever is taking anything out of these videos, and have it be the best practice for themselves. That's correct to the art, but also correct to the individual. You know, kind of like it's Tai Chi Bob Ross. You know, here's the method, here's the what helps in terms of the thinking and the feeling and all that other stuff. You know, show you how to do it best I can, turn you loose on the world. And the way you do it better than me. Cool. Everyone's, again, there's certain developmental stages to go through, certain different practices that really help, and my intent is to sort of break some of that down and build it back up, uh, as complete as I can, not having people in the room with me as I'm practicing and talking about it and everything else like that. So, if there's questions or helpful comments to put in or anything else like that, maybe there's discussions in some of those, underneath the videos that can go on as well. And maybe, who knows, maybe there's a Patreon thing that can happen someday in the future that can help increase that as well. I don't know. So that is sort of my, I guess, statement of intent. For the sort of deconstructing Yang style playlist. This is kind of what I'm thinking of right now, and where I want to go and what I want to do with it. So, yeah, I hope that might lend some clarity, even though I'm ranting for 25 minutes. But still might lend some clarity in terms of, well, why is he talking like this? Why is he doing this like this? Why is this being put out in this way, or something like that? If anyone's watching, if anyone cares, then this is why. So for this one sort of art, to the best of my abilities, to the best of my understanding, break this thing down and build it back up. So people, we're still technically kind of pandemic-y. So, it's been a long time, and people need whatever sort of genuine coping skills. Not fidget spinners, which are not for fidgeting. They're just little toys. Sorry. I'm not sorry at all. They're not for relaxation. They're distractions at best. They're toys. There are actual, things that you can do. I have a little cube. It's got like 6 different things on it that you can do. That's actual thing to help you kind of concentrate and do. There's actual things you can do to help kind of refocus. That fidget spinners are not one, but video games aren't real coping skill. Exercise can be, but that's maybe not always available to you. Listening to music can be, but that's not going to be always available to you either. I said this, again, working in mental health for so long, the only thing you're always going to have available to you is you. That's it. You cannot count on anything else. Again, meds, a certain person to talk to, your mobile phone for whatever distracting sort of stuff might be on that, those are not going to be available to you all the time. So it behooves people, if coping skills are something that someone needs, it behooves you to have several. So that way, if maybe your first two or three aren't available, you still got a few to choose from. And the thing you can always have is yourself. So when we practice things with breathing and everything like that, that's a way that you can kind of look in and always have available to you to chill out. This stuff's, I've told people, this stuff's my meds. If it wasn't for all these internal stuff, I don't know where I'd be now at years old. I might be dead. I might be in prison. I might be totally messed up. Maybe a combination of any of those. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Um, but this is always available to you. Maybe you're at work. You can take 5-10 minutes, go out and back where no one's looking, do some standing, resettle yourself, play brush, knee, twist, step a few times, or just sit there and do certain breathings to be able to do it down. This helps me with, if I feel a migraine coming on, or a panic attack coming on, or a manic episode coming on, or a depressive episode coming on. My teacher's epileptic and can do weird and wonderful stuff with it to not have any problems with that too. So I know this stuff works, not because I read it out of a book, but because I have direct experience from it. Self-defense, um, different sparring, different things in a ring, the kickboxing stuff, push hand stuff, swai jiao, you know, there, and I'll say this too, there is no best art. There is no number one kung fu. There is no, this is better than that. No, 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 no. No, that's BS. I don't care if we're talking about Asian martial arts. I don't care if we're talking about Star Wars Jedi lightsaber forms or any of this other stuff or music or any. There is no one better thing than anything else. It comes down to how the individual expresses themselves in the art. You can have someone who is, been practicing, I don't know, pick a martial art for 20 years since they were 4, now they're 24, and someone who's picking up some other martial art for the last 10 years and now they're 34. 34-year-old still might be able to beat the 24-year-old, even when you start getting about 30, 33, things start really changing. But, and not because that art is better, but because that other person maybe has a legit innate talent that the other person who's been training for longer maybe doesn't have. Maybe there were some skills that translated that even though the other person, the younger person might be faster and stronger, maybe they've just been relying on speed and strength in their youth, but the other person has been really, really hardcore about technique for 10 years. And that technique ends up winning out because of that individual person. So for me, personally, internals are kind of the best for me. They help me express myself. They help me martially. They help me with my health, not only physical, but mental as well, and psychologically. They help me in all the crazy energy and weird, wonderful, like woo-woo stuff I like, regardless of whether any woo-woo stuff is real or anything like that. I like it. I think it's fun. This helps me understand it. This has helped me. It's helped me be a better person. It's helped me be a human being as opposed to whatever path I was on at the time. So it's helped me really grow and evolve in every way, shape, or form. But that's me. That's not everyone. But if yang style is something that, you might like, it's something you've practiced before and want to research some more. If it's something you haven't, but are looking to get in, but starting a class seems daunting or some of the other videos that are out there seem like too much because they're jumping into a middle or something like that, maybe this playlist can help give you a certain base. So then maybe you find a class and that can take over, and then maybe you double back and everything like that. I will say, not really as a disclaimer, but in general, yes, an actual in-person class is better than a video or a book or a magazine article. Yes, the videos, the books, the magazine articles, all that other research stuff can be very helpful, but usually after you already have a base. If you have a base with a teacher who knows what they're talking about and will talk to you intelligently about breathing with your dantian, the correct body structure, the way the feet are supposed to be angled, the way the knees are supposed to go over the feet, the structural architecture of the skeleton and how that's supposed to sit, you know, can talk about standing and sitting and lying down, can talk with some intelligence about, there seems to be a correlation with people who can talk with some intelligence about their lineage and about the history of stuff, and people who actually know what the hell they're talking about in terms of the actual art too. It was just, oh yeah, there was some guy at this gym, and we did this whole week, this 6 week course thing, and I forget the guy's name, and I forget what it was. No, even when I am just teaching some class at the gym that people are variably consistent in, I'm still making sure that I'm making it as correct as I possibly can. I just don't, if someone new is coming in, I'm like, oh, okay, well, here is, the 4 parts of grass, bird's tail, pangluchi, huh? This is it, and here you go. There you go. You can't, and no, I'm still calling stuff out and still making it as correct as I can possibly make it, given the environment that I'm in. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. I'm not here to, to say that that's really the right thing to do or not. I personally, for me, think it is. And I personally, for me, and the experience that I've had, and the things that I've seen, and the people that I've talked to, and the students who have come in to me over the years with varying degrees of experience, this is the perception that I have based on all of that. But yeah, there needs to be some. Part of this too is also the idea of instilling back into the larger culture a more, again, correct, original mentality and intent for the art. Again, I can only speak from my experience, and my experience has not been in terms of geography very broad. I personally feel that's very unfortunate, but that's me. But what I've seen, what I've experienced, what I've read, and what I've, not only in person but on videos and everything like that, is there has been a not indistinct divergence in the practice of Chinese internal martial arts and the correct practice of Chinese internal martial arts. A lot of the times you get bullies who, maybe they come in from an external art, something with more kind of strength and aggression. Maybe they're bigger, and they're using that and throwing people around. And because they could throw someone around, be like, see, my Tai Chi's good. Or you have someone who's like, oh yeah, I just took my fill in the blank hard style form and made it so it's Tai Chi. It's like, no, it's not. There's certain things that make things Tai Chi. And just because you can throw somebody doesn't mean that you're using the Tai Chi correctly. And just because you're not being a bully, and maybe you kind of have that, NPR Quaalude voice, doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing Tai Chi correctly either. Because void of any energy or any intent or any martial principle is just as wrong as someone who's all the time. They're just as incorrect. So, for as much as I can, as much as I'm capable of doing, as much as I'm capable of being able to communicate from my own research and my own experience, I want to try and put out as genuine and internal experience as I can for people. It's not going to be perfect. I don't claim to be a master. I don't claim that I've got Yang style itself figured out down to the quantum level or up to the cosmic level. I can only say that I have the experience that I have, and in my observations, there are things that aren't really getting transmitted. Now, some of that could not necessarily be the teachers. Some of that could just be the students not willing to put the effort into doing what they need to do to get the most out of it. And inconsistent, incomplete attention to classes, um, lack of follow through in terms of daily practice and everything else like that. And honestly, I hate the idea of this being one thing or another, because it's never that. It's always multiple things. Everyone's saying, like, nature nurture, for example. Are people like they are because of their genetics or because of the way they're raised? Duh, it's both. It's both. Both play into it. It's at any time it's like, well, is it this or is it this? It's almost never just one or the other. It's always some blend of the two. This is why, when we're talking about like autism, it's a spectrum, because if you have autism, it's not just one thing. It's not just one thing to look at. It's multiple. It's a whole spectrum of things that go on, and those blend. I know this is odd from someone who's red, blue, and orange, green colorblind, but if you look at the color spectrum, there might be little points that you can point out and say, this is red, this is blue, this is green, this is orange. But if you actually look at it, it all blends from one to the other. It's not, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, as chunks that are divisible from each other. It's not. It's a stream, and they all blend into the other, one into the other. So, and that's the same thing with this. And yet there might even be days where you or I or something like that are really, really feeling it, and stuff's popping. It feels awesome. And there are going to be days where it's complete opposite. Everything feels like crap. You feel like crap. Your playing feels like crap. You're getting discouraged and everything else like that. But the point is, you still kept up a disciplined practice, a consistently disciplined practice. And that's what it's going to take for anything to be good. And if anyone's going to tell you anything about Tai Chi or internals or anything else, that here's this fast, easy way to learn this one thing and you're going to be awesome at it and master it in no time flat, they're full of crap. Internals especially. Because there's so much you have to unlearn and then relearn and then practice and then keep moving up even from that. There's stuff that my teacher told me and things I've read in books. They say that, there's a story of a student going to the teacher, and it was like, oh, if I practice really, really hard every day with my full intent, how long until I'm like a master? Teacher's like, 10 years. Huh. Well, maybe I practice, 4 hours a day, not just 1 hour a day, 4 hours a day, every single day. I'm super hardcore into it. I've got, physical fitness, and I'm meditating. How long until I get to that? They're expecting less time. It's like, I don't know, 15 years. 8 hours a day, every day. That's my whole life. My whole life is dedicated to nothing but this internal practice and everything. The teacher's like, I don't know, 20 years, dude. Because then the mind isn't right. The intent isn't right. It's all on this really grasping, hungry ghost, greedy sort of thing for it. And that sort of mindset is locking the mind and the spirit and everything in this little box. And in order to grow, you can't be in this little box. And it's the same thing with everything: religion, science, politics. Some people have a very sort of distinct view on parenting or any of this other stuff. If all your thing is you're drawing yourself parameters around your thoughts and your experience and your spirit and everything else like that, you're never going to evolve, and you're actually making your life harder. I saw it all the time working in mental health. And like, I've actually called it out. I'm like, you guys are literally and actively making your lives harder than they need to be. And as someone who has done that to themselves for years and years and years, I know it when I see it. So it's proper preparation prevents poor performance. It's not necessarily just practice that makes perfect. You know, correct practice is going to lead to perfection. And then get rid of the idea of perfection. It's never going to happen. It's never going. You're never. What was it? My teacher, I think, even said it was like, "You're never going to be perfect. Now practice to be perfect." So you put as much effort as you can, and you're able to do into making yourself as correct as possible. But release that idea that there's an endpoint to it. Because if you think, oh, well, this is what perfect is, that's an endpoint. And if you give yourself an endpoint, again, you're boxing yourself in. And it's never, you're going to limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. So this is a way to break everything down into such a way that can help people then move past some of maybe the limits. We'll say that. Maybe have some limits. There's going to be things that I'm going to do here on this playlist here. Well, that's a weird way to say here. I'm almost getting David Lynch, and I didn't mean to. Um, that are going to be repetitive to other videos on my channel, my channel at large. And that's fine. If those other videos help, maybe something I say in those other videos is clearer than something I say in this playlist, or vice versa, and they help. I'm not actively trying to be redundant, but my purpose for this playlist is to make the playlist as self-contained a unit as I can. So then saying, okay, well, I'm going to skip the three plane circles because I did it in this other thing. But you need to do that because I need this in the playlist anyway. So go and watch let me just put everything in one place. So yes, if there's some redundancy in some videos that seem like, dude, you did this already, I'm doing that because I want things to be together in this. And I think that having it with the mindset going into it that I'm purposely going into it for yang style specifically, as opposed to the practice itself, or as something that can be then translated to, because I was making things that can be used for people in the classrooms, for example, where I was working, or students that I have and other things that wanted like a refresher on certain things. So instead of having it be that intent, have the intent now how I'm going to fold this back into yang style. So if there's redundancies, just know that the repetitive videos in this playlist are meant just to be in this playlist and make this playlist as self-contained a forum of specifically yang style as it can be. Okay, so I think that's it for right now in terms of you know a statement of intent, basically. Um, so yeah, the intent is again to build a playlist for Yang style Taiji Chuan that can help people understand it and make their own practice of it as best it can be. And then again, also it's kind of helping me organize my thoughts and stuff I want to do. I have a whole idea of kind of a way to break some things down that I haven't really seen before, but it's something that kind of, it's a mix match sort of thing that kind of makes sense to me. And maybe there's other stuff that has it and I just haven't seen it, or the people who are doing it and haven't put it out there. You know, I'm not claiming any sort of grand discovery or anything else like that. But again, it's something that I've, you know, started tinkering with, and I hope it helps. And that was part of the reason for the impetus for this playlist anyway, was that sort of stuff. but being able to, so that's going to help me too. So anyway, I hope this is helpful to people as a playlist in general, and I'll see you soon. Thank you.